Kayla Craig, illustrious author and liturgist and mom and all the things. Thank you for joining me on For Real. I'm so excited you're back.
I told my husband, I'm like, I'm looking forward to talking because it's like talking with a friend. Thank you for having me again. I didn't scare you off too bad.
Oh, no, you're a total veteran. Also, the last time we saw each other, we literally ran into each other in the Palm Springs airport. Is that the last time we saw each other?
We had a meet cute. We really did.
Which is funny since we're both stay-at-home moms in Iowa. So
right.
We felt really glamorous for like 25 minutes.
That's right. Exactly.
Oh, Kayla, I'm so excited to talk with you because you wrote a beautiful book. You already wrote one other beautiful book that I love that we've talked about before called To Light Their Way, but you have a new one coming out. September 19th is the release date, and I'm so excited to talk to you about it because I love it. But before I go into that, I would love for you to talk to me about your family because this is a family book. I'm holding it up for our YouTubers. It's isn't that a beautiful cover? You got a beautiful
and
cover.
when you get the hardcover, it's like,
oh, it's so lovely. It's what I want out on my table all the time. But you have written a book for families, and I can't wait to talk to you about this because some folks have attempted that, and I wouldn't say that it's always successful because families are layered and multi-generational and multi-aged. And somehow, lady, you pulled it off. So before we dig into how you possibly did that, tell me about your family. Introduce us to them.
Yes.
And let us know about how that worked. And part B, please talk to us about living in a convent.
Yeah, that's right. Okay, so I have 4 kids. They're between the ages of 7 and 13 newly. So we have a lot of kind of ages and stages. Our family grew through adoption, as well as I gave birth to 2 of my sons. My daughter Eliza is amazing. She has Down syndrome and quite a few disabilities due to a seizure disorder that she had. So we're never a dull moment in our house. We have a lot of different personalities, a lot of different preferences. We spent all summer together, which, you know, we do live in a former convent. So we have a lot of square feet. But I feel like we're always in the same room. And I'm like, how is this happening? I love you so much. And also we could disperse at times.
That is my life, not the convent part. Although I have also lived in a former convent.
That's
we have this in common. Did I tell you that one time?
So weird. Yes, you did.
That's weird. It
wild.
doesn't come up often, Kayla, but I feel like you're my fellow former nun. But that happens in my house too. I think, wow, we have a lot of rooms here. And you're all here in this room next to me. I thought that might change when they got older. And I want you to know that it doesn't. Yeah. It doesn't change.
Yep.
Those rooms are for naught is what I'm telling you. Okay. So I want to talk to you about this. You mentioned you have a bunch of different personalities and different preferences. And yet you have written a book for all of us and you organized this book. I just want to jump right in because this is we're planning to release this in the fall when families are thinking again about, okay, how do we reintroduce structure and reintroduce kind of rhythms and moments that we're sharing. And in my family, that has gotten more complicated, not less, as the kids grow up and they find their mojo. And I want them to, right? I want them to be doing all the different things. And I like it that I have 3 very, very different kids. But that does present some challenges then in terms of when we get back together, how can we have rich conversations that kind of hit multiple different developmental stages and also preferences and personality. So one way that you organize this is by season. So the seasons of the year. So summer, winter, fall, and spring. My question for you is, as we dive in, what season are you living right now? Because I don't think it's just kids who go through this. So both as a woman and then also as a parent, do you have any thoughts on that? The kind of season that you're living?
Oh my gosh, that's a great question. I feel like it changes sometimes by the day, right? You know, like sometimes I'm the house goblin and I'm not going outside and I'm wintering even in the summer, you know, I'm just like, I just need to be here and have my people here. There are other seasons where it's like new growth. like coming out of that. And that sometimes is like, you don't even realize you're doing it. And then you're like, oh, I have some new energy toward this, or I am starting to explore new ideas. And so I really feel like it's this kind of interesting cycle that ebbs and flows kind of, day to day sometimes.
Totally. Do you give yourself license for that? Are you good at saying like, this is a season for growth, or this is my house goblin season? Are you pretty good at letting that come? Or do you feel like a tension of, no, I should be more blank?
Yes. I think it's something I have to be really intentional about and work on, because there's always those shoulds. I have a spiritual director, and we were talking, she's like, you're saying should a lot. You're saying should a whole lot. And I'm like, I know, but I should have energy to like do everything my house needs. I should have energy to do all the therapies that my daughter needs. I should have energy to be thinking about my next book. But, also I know that's not coming from God. Those shoulds are not coming from God. And so I have to be really intentional to say, in this season, this is the best I can do. This is what it looks like to care for my own soul. This is what it looks like to care for the soul of my family. This is what it looks like to receive the love of God. And this was what it looks like to pour out. And it's different and it changes all the time.
That's so wise. And I find it kind of hard to do sometimes. I don't know why the should is so powerful. It's like in capital letters all the time in my brain. So I love it that you just mentioned that you should, that little bit right there that you say, I should have all the energy for both my home and also bringing Eliza to all of her appointments and fully engaging in those conversations. We're talking just after I had a beautiful week at a place called Hope Heals Camp, which is a spot that our friends Catherine and Jay Wolf have for families who are experiencing disability in any family member. And they talk beautifully about mutual ministry between people who are experiencing disability and typically abled people. And as a mom of Eliza, I'm wondering about that for you, how this should of needing, caregivers in particular. I think I watched this over and over in the last week, that they feel in some ways this extraordinary burden to should for everybody, right? To rally the troops, to organize the troops, to keep everybody humming. And that is not sustainable on the long haul. They do it a long time, sometimes decades, but I'd love for you to talk to me specifically about that, about being the parent of Eliza and how seasons have shifted with her, and maybe how your faith has shifted or your faith experience has shifted as her mom specifically.
When I look at Eliza, I see Jesus, and I see the face of God in a child that does not speak. She doesn't use words to communicate, but she still communicates. She doesn't walk on her own, but she still provides so much love in her physical touch. So I think I have my view of who God is and who I am in light of that has shifted dramatically in parenting Eliza. Eliza has taught me so much by the gift of getting to journey with her and get to be her mother, because I'm a output driven person, right? I'm performance driven. I like to get things done. I'm always looking ahead. And you can't do that with Eliza. We can't look ahead. We don't have a plan. It's a day to day. God give us what we need for right now. And so I've learned so much, and I'm learning so much as we journey through different, seasons with her.
I hear in that a posture of both curiosity and humility. And both of those things don't lean very well towards hurry or performance. I'm learning that in my own way right now too, that most of the good stuff doesn't come fast. Most of the good learning and walking and understanding and even just growth, hardly ever is it take a pill and pretty soon it's all going to work out. So it sounds like Eliza has been a very good teacher.
Yes. Yeah. She's very forgiving to me. Sometimes I'm like, oh my gosh, I haven't, I've been distracted doing this. And she's so gracious with me. And that helps me be gracious to myself so I can be
so
gracious
good.
to others. Yeah.
Talk to me about writing this particular book, because your other book that I love so much has some similarities, but this is a little bit of a tilt of the prism. And I'd love I'd like to talk a little bit about the writing of it. I assume the writing of this book was a little different. In part, Kayla, because even though I'm not writing in that space, I do feel a kinship with you because of the convent, and also because we're Iowans, and also because, like, you and I are both moving in kind of parallel tracks. We are trying our darndest to be good mothers to our kids and to be present in our homes and to, invest in our marriages, which all of the things that I just said are all full-time jobs. And then we're also writing books, which is total lunacy. And I'm not sure why I didn't become an accountant. Well, actually, I am sure no one wants
nobody
me as their
wants
accountant.
to be messing with their money. Yeah.
Forget that. No.
Yeah.
But talk about seasons. Before we started recording, you were like, I'm moving into launch season. And for an author, a book launch season is kind of like the upswing of a roller coaster. Like, there is once you are on that train, there's no turning back until you get to the top. And the book is out there, and then you can start reading your negative Amazon reviews and go back to eating ice cream. But you are in a space where you're juggling lots of things. And I'm wondering about how you do that. Like, what does this look like for you? What does the writing of this look like for you? How do you decide, oh, that's the spot? Like you mentioned earlier, I need to be thinking about my next book. That's a little aside to people who aren't in this very weird job. There's always the hope of the next book. And also you kind of have to be percolating with that. So how did you decide every season sacred was the next book? And then how did you go about writing it?
Yeah.
Was it different than To Light Their Way?
It was so different.
It was
so different. Yes, because this book is a lot more. There's kind of memoir essays with
which I love. Yes.
And it is so vulnerable, and it takes a different type of posture of storytelling. I think so much about the actual people in their actual lives opening this book. And, my background is journalism, and it's like, serve the reader. So I was thinking about all the real life moms and dads I know, all the people that have shared their experiences, their honest doubt, their honest struggle, and trying to create something that would share what I have experienced while also bringing them in, also bringing in other writers, theologians, pastors, artists, creators, and showing there's an expansive way to experience God. There's an expansive way to experience the different themes that we kind of experience in fall or into winter, whether that's spiritual or just in the everyday experiences of raising children. So writing it was really, it felt vulnerable, more vulnerable to me than I was expecting than when I wrote To Light Their Way and those prayers, because those prayers, I had this really outward kind of focused and this was so inward as I was writing. So that was really interesting. And I wrote it in the summer when my kids were home. So I like to write by hand. And I was like, they were playing tennis and I was, writing.
Wow.
A part of the chapter that's going to go in the book. And so I was living it. There's so many stories in that book that came out of those experiences.
Right.
My husband's a pastor, and he's like, every story, no story is safe.
Yeah,
it could all be a sermon illustration. And that is so true as my parenting. Like, I'm not it's not fiction. I'm literally pulling from my childhood or seasons of my parenting journey or what I have learned from others who have had a different experience and can provide a different perspective, So it has been a real growing opportunity. And I feel like it's so easy for me to get cynical, or it's so easy for me to feel a lot of doubt. And I feel like in the writing of this book, God was just like, come sit, come be with me. And I hope that I can give that offering to other parents and other families.
Oh, I just love everything you said, except for the part about writing books by hand. I don't understand you people. You and Nicole Bart, our friend Nicole Bart, you both write books by hand. I don't understand that, but well done. And you are a writer's writer, and I'm a fake writer because I know
Well, I do a
Microsoft
mix.
Word.
I just do what I
Okay.
have to do. So
Okay, yeah.
it's a hybrid situation.
If at tennis you have a paper and a pen, that's where it
That's
goes.
right. Yeah.
I would love to circle back to what you said about you were envisioning real life people and real life parents in how they would consume this book. You nail that because I love the rhythm of this, but I cannot wait to start this with my family. So far, I've just read most of it by myself. And then I've realized, wait a minute, I'm just keeping this treasure all to myself. You've divided into sections. I believe they're 13. Is it 13 weeks
That's
per
right.
section?
Yep. Yep.
And then each section begins with, as you said, a reflection or kind of memoir like story just for me as the mom or the dad. And then you move into things that I can do with my family. So a prayer, sometimes a longer prayer at the beginning of the section, but then usually just some scripture to read together and just fantastic questions. And I'm glad you outed yourself again, that you are a journalist by heart. And I already know that because your questions are fantastic. I usually find discussion questions to be lame-o, and I hardly ever read them out loud because I find them to be either too sugary or leaning really towards yes or no answers, which is not going to help me with my teenagers. I don't want yes or no. So did you lean into your journalism streak, Miss Craig?
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
I mean, I went into journalism, I worked in newspapers and magazines, and I'm so curious, and asking questions is part of the job. So it's like my excuse to be nosy, right?
Totally.
So it's like,
you got the badge.
This is why you do the podcast, right? You get to ask anything and they have to answer, So I love getting deeper, going deeper. It's so easy. And I fall into this too, to just be like, oh, how was your day? Or did you have a good day? Or was practice okay? And it's like, those don't go anywhere.
Right.
But I love actually having a thoughtful conversation without any pressure. So it's like, if the scripture is a resource to you, awesome. If you don't have the margin, fine. There are lots of questions to pick from that go through the different, kind of themes of each little mini chapter. What's going to resonate with your family, your kids in this season of life. So pick and choose, and it doesn't have to be like a thing, it can just be an organic rhythm where you're like, oh, I read that question. Now we're driving. Maybe we can talk about it. They're trapped in the car.
Totally. Got a captive audience. Really good car conversations. Yeah. I don't know how you did this, but the questions and the questions, along with their kind of sample prayers that you have at the bottom, one for younger families and one for older. I don't know how you did that, but you did it. You captured all ages, which again, I just find that to be super difficult. And you did such a good job. A few of the questions that I pulled, there was one where you said, what's distracting you right now? And that is a great question for a 5-year-old. And it's a great question for a 20-year-old. And a 47-year-old, if I'm being honest. Or why did God give us imaginations, right? Why is that important as a grown-up as well as for a kid? These are questions I think that will travel, not just across age, but as you just mentioned, across your days and in other contexts. And then that you tie them to scripture, and we can know about that when our identity is rooted in Jesus. It's just something else. Well done, journalist.
Thank you. It's, as we kind of bring this book into the world, it feels like, is this going to hit? Is this going to resonate in different seasons? So it really means so much to me that you found something there to pull from.
Oh, for sure. And I, of course, since I have your number and text you, will be following up with conversations that happen in our actual home. Yeah. It's funny that you mention, I thought of the actual families. I thought of the readers. I talked to a lot of writers in a couple different contexts. And that is a conversation that we have to continue to return to as writers, but I think also as parents. Who is in the chair? Who is my target market? Who is listening, right? Who do we want to listen? And it's funny how I can zone out and just stop asking that question. When you said we fall back on how was school? Who'd you sit with at lunch? Those are like I've got my little top 5 questions, but that can be a zoning out and forgetting who my target market is. So your conversations do such a good job of pulling out better and deeper thoughts from everybody in the room.
Yeah.
So did you already know how to do this? This is my question, because devos or spiritual discussions at our house often, I'd say if I did a percentage, end up in flames, particularly after dinner I grew up in a family that would do after dinner devotions. And we had this little book called Bread, and it was not written for children, but we would listen. And my parents were very good at kind of sparking really great discussions. I think maybe I've rewritten that in my head. I think if I asked my mom, she would say yes, many times up in flames. People are throwing food. They're totally over it. They don't want to talk about things. Fine. Everything's fine. So are spiritual discussions in the home in a convent with a liturgist and a pastor leading them? Do people sing in 3-part harmony?
Oh my gosh. Oh yes. It's just, my kids have halos. It is.
Does C.S. Lewis come by in some way? Do you quote Narnia to each other?
That's right. Yeah. No. My life is chaos, right? Our lives are chaos. We all have real, actual lives where we have like the real demands of family and domestic life. And then we're trying to understand what's happening when we pick up our phones and read what's going on in the news. So we're trying to metabolize that and figure out what is our purpose in regards to that, and what is our family's purpose in light of that. We're trying to figure out how to care for our neighbor well, our literal neighbor, our figurative neighbor. It gets so much. And so for me, I wrote the book I needed. I need something that I can turn to that's not high pressure. This book doesn't have dates. It is really like open it, grab what you need, shut it, and be done. Like it is supposed to be a resource for you to stay rooted, to exhale, to take a breath and just be like, okay, everything is out of control. My kids are fighting and screaming, and I have a work deadline, and the world is going up in flames. Like, what do I do here? And there are no easy answers, but I think remembering that God is with us in all of that can help change us from the inside so that we can be moved to live out and live into who we are.
Every single season sacred, and sacred because of his presence that just won't let us go. Yeah, that is beautiful and true. And thank you for that reminder even today that I need. I have one last question for you before my final hit. I'm wondering about your bent as a poet. You are a poet. I love your poems. I mean, they're prayers. You write prayers, but there is a beautiful cadence to your prayers and a beautiful kind of mix of the ethereal and the earthy, which I think is why I love them so much. I've read many, many, many out loud of To Light Their Way. And one of the reasons I think I connect so much to those is because, and to the ones in Every Season Sacred, is because I feel like you're a compatriot, like you're in my house. Only you're putting language to things that I cannot. And of course, that is the role of liturgy, right? And of written prayers for someone else to give us something we need to borrow sometimes. Sometimes we just don't have the right things. I have the prayer for winter here and just want to read a little bit of it. We thank you for the "Here, let me take your coat," and the sprigs of evergreen in boutonnieres and corsages, for winter formal dances with teens who used to be toddlers, now donning dresses and suits. We thank you for snowmen with lopsided smiles, borrowed ice skates, and neighborhood sledding hills, for the sound of laughter that echoes across town. We thank you for the hand-me-down sweaters, sturdy boots, and wet socks drying by the heater. This is my life in the winter. Always. This is my life. And I love it that you use a zoom lens to come into that moment. what I want to know is how did you mix that so beautifully with longer prose and those reflections?
Mm.
Really specifically, I write longer form. The memoir piece I have a little bit more experience with, but this poetry situation, do you have to wait until you feel the muse to write something like that? Does it have to come to you, or do you always have a part of your brain that is kind of steeped in that kind of language?
I think for me, it goes back to paying attention. I think so much of writing, so much of spirituality, so much of parenting goes back to noticing and paying attention. And so I think there is something where I'm always trying to like be present. I think because I have an inclination not to be. I have an inclination to think ahead and think to the future. So for me, it's a practice in my writing, in how I show up. In parenting and in my faith is just to try to notice and then reflect that back to God. And so that is kind of, it's a spiritual practice for me. And so it means a lot when other people are like, I didn't have the words, but this is exactly how I felt. And that is such a gift. And I'm really grateful to hear that sometimes that really hits and resonates.
Oh, it does every single time. It does every time. I like to know that, how your brain works. I don't think mine works that way. So thank you.
My brain is chaos. It just
it doesn't seem like it. You've ordered it very well in this book. I'm very impressed.
Need the order. I need the order. Right. That's why I wrote it that way, because I need that stability.
Right. Yeah. Well, that's it. That's the humdinger, right? Like we are all, I am looking for that. I'm looking for these moments. And you mentioned the liturgical calendar, how in church we move towards, I mean, whether or not your church observes the liturgical calendar, we do have definite rhythms towards Christmas and towards Easter in particular and Lent. And I think God knows that about us, that we love rhythm. We are naturally disposed to this, cycle of a moon, the cycle of a season and the tide. And I was somewhere this summer where the tide rose and receded dramatically twice a day, every 12 hours on the dot. I can't remember how many feet. It was like watching a bathtub fill all the way up and then all the way down 2 times a day. And there's something in us that takes comfort in that there are cycles and rhythms and cadences. And I think that's why I have latched onto your book so much for my family, because it helps me. No matter what the day brings, there is this landing point. There's a rooting point where we all remember, oh yeah, that's who we are. Oh, that's right. That's whose we are. That's whose we are as well. So Kayla, thank you for writing just a beautiful book. And on Instagram as well, everywhere you go, you just start sprinkling in these really beautiful things that are like life jackets every now and then. So don't stop. I'm sorry your life is chaos. Mine is too. Keep speaking into it because we need it.
You are so gracious. You are so, so kind and generous to say that. Thank you.
I'm needy. I'm glad it came off as gracious, but mostly I'm needy. So help me. Okay. Last question, Kayla. And I know I've asked you this before, so you know that this is coming. Okay. 2 books. One book that you recommend over and over again. It could be 150 years old or older, but one that you keep going back to, a little backlist title, and then another book that you're excited to read.
Okay. I can't remember what I told you last time. So I'm just going to
matter. Hit me again.
Off the cuff. I love Madeline L'Engle's Walking on Water.
Oh,
I could turn to it again and again.
That. I don't know that I have millions of years ago though.
Oh, it'll hit fresh for sure.
Okay. I'm putting that to the top of the list. Walking on Water by L'Engle. Okay.
Yeah.
Good one.
It's so beautiful. And, yeah.
Is that for everyone? Do you think that's, all ages? Or
I think anybody who appreciates, kind of generative art in any way. So if you appreciate writing, even if you're not a writer, you're a reader, if you appreciate, just exploring maybe God in everything, not just quote unquote, like Christian music or Christian, writing or Christian art, but just kind of having this kind of nuanced and beautiful view. She talk about putting words to the cry of your heart. I turn to that book again and again.
Okay. Great recommendation. Yeah. Thank you. Anything you're excited to read? A new title?
Oh my goodness. There's so much. I will tell you, I am putting books on hold hoarder.
Okay.
I recently got a Kindle, and I always said I love paper, right? We talked about that.
Oh,
But
sorry.
it's a
I'm going to
revolution.
stop you because it cut out. So
Okay.
I'm so sorry, but back up to I recently got a Kindle. Just start there.
Okay. I recently got a Kindle, and it's shocking for me. I said I was never going to get a Kindle because I love paper, right?
Me too.
But it has revolutionized my reading, and I feel like I'm reading so much more and faster. And I love the Libby. I'm like evangelizing this, but the
I
Libby.
am asking you why? Why do you think you're reading more and faster?
I don't know. It's just right there, and it's just
Amazing.
yeah, yeah.
Oh,
I don't know.
you are target market then. I wouldn't have pegged you as a
I know.
Kindler.
I know. It's wild. It's revolutionary. But
Awesome.
I use the Libby app, which is the library app.
Sure, me too.
And then I put them on hold, get them sent to my Kindle, and I just feel like I'm reading everything and anything. I love
That's amazing.
all across all genres. So, gosh, I couldn't even pick just one because I have about 25 books on my hold.
Oh, I just let you are a hoarder. But it's good that you
totally
acknowledge it. So
Yeah.
those download directly to the Kindle if you have it on hold, right?
Yes,
Yeah.
and it's
So
free.
that's awesome because
Yeah.
then you're not standing in the library thinking, what was that book that I was going to read? It's just going straight to you. Mm-hmm.
And I am notoriously really bad at getting books back to the library on time. So this just gets sent off, and I don't have to feel guilty.
Totally. We used to say that they needed to name the new wing of our library after us because of late fees. We were prolific in our late
You were a
payment.
donor. Yeah.
We were accidental donors. Yeah.
That's right.
Totally. Kayla Craig, thank you for joining me from the convent. Thank you so much for writing a beautiful book, Every Season Sacred. I am super excited to introduce this to the seasons in my home.
Mm-hmm.
And I only talk about things that I really love. Mm-hmm. And this is something I really love. And you are someone I really love. So thank you for doing this beautiful work, even in the craziness of your normal daily life. I know that when we turn these cameras off, I have 3 toilets I need to clean. And someone at your house might have, I don't know, had a bloody nose all within the last hour. So I see you and I'm thanking you. Thank you. Press on. Don't stop.
Thank you so much. So grateful for you.